Hello, Rebecca Rideal here. I'm so excited to bring you this special HistFest behind-the-scenes look at the latest Anne Boleyn drama that's going to broadcast on Channel 5 tonight at 9 p.m, so do tune in. I'll be honest, as a historian of the 17th century, it's a little bit bizarre for me to have a picture of Anne Boleyn behind me, but that's fine, that's fine. I'm going to bring you today an interview with the creator and writer of this new series, Hedderwick Turner, and she'll be speaking to me about the creative process that went into making a drama out of a really well-known historical story, also the portrayal of Anne by Jodie Turner-Smith, and the character of Anne and the wider Tudor court at this time. Please stay tuned and enjoy. Eve, thank you ever so much for joining me today. How are you feeling? Nervous? Excited?
Excited now. I've been definitely up and down, feeling sort of nervous at letting our baby that we've all worked on for so long finally out into the world. But now I'm just really excited for people to see it and just show it to everybody.
If we just go back to the writing side of things, because Anne Boleyn's story, the story of her life and demise, is such an iconic story in English history. What attracted you to this? I mean, what captivated you when it came to Anne Boleyn from a writing point of view?
I think, as you say, there was always that notion of Anne Boleyn, these kind of like big, splashy, often quite derogatory sort of terms that sort of surrounded her story, those kind of traitor, cheater, you know, she's a witch, she's a seductress, six fingers, you know, she became sort of larger than life, I'm sure, for all of us who ever sort of studied history at school. And I guess when Fable sort of said that they were thinking about developing a show about Anne Boleyn, for me it was immediately that kind of opportunity to sort of switch the lens on her story and kind of make her the protagonist in her own story again, and really try and kind of peel back all those kind of big splashy labels that have been attached to her in the past, and kind of understand as a human being what was making her tick, what was her experience of this really dramatic series of events that led to her sort of essentially her murder.
You're enjoying my brother's company this evening, Lady Worcester?
I always enjoy his company.
He's the only man at court I can stand for longer than 20 minutes. Excluding my husband, of course. Just be sure Jane doesn't get any ideas into her head. She's a spiteful little bitch sometimes. I don't mean you, my little mouse.
The other Jane. Everyone knows you couldn't hurt a fly.
Yes, my dear sister-in-law holds a loose tongue in her head. And she is fiercely protective of my brother. I hate this game. Jane, you'll go. Have you visited the king recently, Madge?
I have not been called for.
Did you upset him? He's very proud, you know.
I have done nothing but what you have asked of me. Perhaps his attention is elsewhere.
Perhaps.
Your Grace?
Lady Rochford, your timing is impeccable. I was just telling Miss Seymour here about your enviable conversation skills.
The French ambassador has sent you a gift. in anticipation of your son's arrival and a show of King Francis's continuing support.
Very fine. Find a place for it in my chamber. I'm too tired to talk la politique française tonight. I'll thank him tomorrow. Jane, you had the winning hand all along.
I didn't understand the game.
Well then, you really mustn't play.
And then if we go to the process of creating this historical fiction, historical drama out of historical fact, how did that process work for you? I mean, did you work with historians?
Number one, we were just so lucky to have as one of our exec producers Dan Jones, who obviously is an incredible historian and just knows pretty much all you need to know about that period. So to have him on board to immediately sort of help me guide my research was really helpful. The first sort of time that we sat down together, he brought a huge tote bag full of books. I have most of them actually still up on my bookshelf. Like, you know, a little bit overwhelming when he first sat down with this pile of research, but from the start he was really helpful in sort of saying, okay, well look, you know, maybe read this and this biography to get a really good overview, but then if you want some specific knowledge about X, turn to this chapter of this book. So it was good to have that kind of guided research. But yeah, there were just like quite a few sort of books that I probably wouldn't have picked up if it wasn't for Dan, sort of things that weren't necessarily specifically about her life, but books like How to Be a Tudor by Ruth Goodman and The Lives of Tudor Women by Elizabeth Norton, that just helped me kind of get under the sort of the skin of just what it was like to live at that time and sort of little details that I wouldn't have necessarily picked up on otherwise.
Oh, go on, you need to share. What are your favourite details then?
Little things like how they would wash, you know, it's really brilliant in How to Be a Tudor. Ruth Goodman sort of spends some time experimenting herself as to like just how smelly a Tudor might have been. So she sort of experiments with kind of cleaning with linen instead of water and all of that sort of stuff. And so those sort of details were really, you know, important to just kind of make it feel rich and sort of real in some way.
And was there anything that surprised you? If we go back to Anne's story, was there anything that surprised you about that?
Definitely. As I say, you know, having only a kind of remote understanding of her life, I think a lot of the time the sort of image that's portrayed about her is that she was sort of power hungry and in that kind of wanted power just sort of for power's sake. But what I found really interesting was just how sort of involved and sort of motivated by the sort of political landscape she really was. And obviously she was an incredibly educated and ambitious woman, and being in the position that she was, where she was such an influential person at court. She was, you know, one of the closest people to Henry, of course, and so you know, political writers were often really aware that if they wanted their sort of like new policy to be put before the king, they should address it to Anne. And so she, you know, she had all of these kind of pieces of political philosophy or, you know, new ideas that were sort of dedicated to her, that would be brought to her, that she would sort of read, and then, you know, if she felt that she wanted to champion them, she would take them to the king or talk to Cromwell maybe about them. And that was a side to her that I hadn't probably fully understood, and was just a really kind of fantastic thing to discover about her.
You should know that the Dissolution Act has been provisionally approved by Parliament. We now just await the King's seal before we can commence. We'll start by disbanding the smaller monasteries with incomes of less than £200
Did you hear
a year.
that?
Your Grace?
The peacock.
I didn't hear a thing. Are you quite well?
I am. Quite. I have reviewed your proposals for the redistribution of monastery funds, and I'm afraid I cannot support you in your plans. They are based solely on a greedy design to line the king's coffers. That money belongs to the church.
The king is the church. Surely you cannot argue with that.
The money should be used at least in part for charitable endeavors.
Oh, don't tell me you've developed a conscience now.
I have received many petitions over the past month from remarkable thinkers with inspiring visions of how to put the income to good use educating a new generation. True reform.
Remarkable thinkers and inspiring visions will not save the king from financial ruin.
Your plan is transparently self-serving.
I have the backing of Parliament.
But you need the king's, do you not? And without my support, you can forget about his.
Maybe, for now. But make no mistake. Your influence lies in your belly, not your brain.
So one of the things that I found particularly moving, I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but well, actually, we know the story. It's not about the story. It's about how we get to those points. But one of the things that I found very moving in the earlier episodes was the depiction of Anne's miscarriage and Jodie's performance. It was quite breathtaking. I wonder if you could tell us who this Anne is that we meet in your drama. What is her character? Who do we find?
I mean, I think she's incredibly bold and courageous. She's the sort of mold-breaking woman that isn't afraid to kind of use her voice to sort of champion causes or speak her mind, sometimes, to her own detriment, that, what she's saying isn't going to please people and isn't going to put her in a good position with the king and other people in power. But she's so passionate about these things that she can't hold back. And also, she's a really sort of fierce mother figure. She's incredibly sort of protective over Elizabeth, and a lot of what she's trying to carve out for herself is actually about trying to carve out a legacy for her daughter. And she just wants to, I think, be a sort of change maker.
And was it strange for you seeing this character that you'd built on page, you'd scripted, brought to life in a reality in drama form? I mean, what was that experience like for you?
It was so brilliant, and I was wondering how I'd feel about it, because I actually came to writing through acting, so I always knew that was going to be a part of it that I was going to find really, really exciting, to sort of finally see it come to life and to be lifted off the page. But some people who'd been through that sort of process before warned me that it can feel quite sort of painful to hand over your sort of work to someone else and let them realize it in their own way. But actually, I think just because we were so lucky to have such talented people on board, Jodie's such an incredible actor, and so the rest of the cast, and Lindsay, our director, just brought this world to life in ways that I couldn't have possibly imagined, but that were sort of a million times better than what I had imagined for it. And it often just felt like I wasn't really watching the script that that I'd sort of spent all those months kind of poring over, because they just really made it their own in a really fantastic way.
So you filmed this during the pandemic. I just wonder what that experience was like. And obviously I've watched the first couple of episodes already, but I do kind of recognise as a fantastic old building that's being used. So where was that? I mean, where were you filming?
So a lot of it was filmed in Bolton Castle in Yorkshire. It was all filmed in various locations around Yorkshire. And I think it was fantastic, because all of us, as a cast and crew, we're all just so happy to be working. I think everyone felt really lucky, and it meant that there was this incredibly positive spirit on set. And also because we were sort of out somewhat in the sticks. We were in the middle of the countryside. I think it meant that we could all sort of like be quite sort of protected, and you know, socializing was just long walks in the countryside, and yeah, it felt just like we were in a kind of large creative bubble, which was really lovely.
Oh, it does sound nice, actually. Just going back to the drama, do you have, well, I don't know if you can tell us actually, but do you have a favourite scene within the drama? And if you do, can you tell us what it is?
I do have some favourite moments. I think actually a lot of them are in the third episode, because I think it was one of the more challenging episodes to write, because it's pretty much all based in the Tower, and because the sort of concept behind the series is that we never really leave Anne. It's got this very kind of claustrophobic, quiet feeling of sort of suspense to it, and I think, you know, Lindsay and Jodie have both done an absolutely incredible job with making that work in what could be quite challenging, dramatic circumstances. I think possibly my favourite sequence is the trial. It felt like one of those sort of pinnacle moments where we were sort of giving the stage back to Anne and sort of saying, look, this is the moment that she can have her turn to have her say and sort of right those hundreds of years of wrongs that were done against her.
What is it, do you think, that's made Anne Boleyn's story resonate so much throughout the centuries?
I think probably one of them is just the drama that is involved in her story, and it's got kind of all of those essential elements that you'd want in a kind of really rich drama. But I think probably at its centre is this sense of injustice. You know, Anne was definitely a woman who was trying to carve out a place for herself in the world, and as I was saying, she was someone who broke the mould and was then punished incredibly severely for it. You know, I think the patriarchy has tried to use her story as a warning to other people who might also try and kind of make change. But I think along the way, they've sort of just made her somewhat of a kind of icon, a feminist icon. And I think that's partly why her story is so sort of revered today still.
So what's next for you then? You've obviously got one historical drama tied up, done, ready to be broadcast this evening. What are you working on next?
I'm working on something which is very different to this, which is a kind of contemporary horror film, with a sort of political backbone about the sort of state of social housing in the UK, which is obviously a completely different world. I'm working on another sort of historic period drama about a real woman called Nancy Wake, who was a spy in the Second World War and was sort of parachuted into France to arm the resistance armies in southern France. So another kind of fantastic twist on an often quite sort of male landscape or a male part of history. So yeah, a few little bits burning away.
Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting. Technically, because this is all about history, I should be most excited about the World War II one, but I'm actually really intrigued about the social housing one, having grown up in it myself. So I'll look out for that. Eve, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for giving up your time today, and I wish you the very best of luck with the launch of the series. Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure.
thank you for joining us this evening, and I do hope you enjoy the drama tonight. If you are interested in future HistFest events, please do check out the website www.histfest.org. Our next event is happening this Thursday, and it will be an exploration into the life of John of Gaunt with the historian Dan Jones, also the historical consultant on Anne Boleyn, and also the historian Helen Carr. So please do check that out, and I'll see you again soon.